Province State Polytechnic College. I'm so honored to be here. My name is Jaz Linh Nguyen, and today I'm presenting instructional design via virtual environments. Now, you might ask, what on earth is this 19-year-old doing presenting to such an esteemed faculty? Well, this presentation will explain an architecture for residents in learning, a framework to not only better design instructional content for learning, but an energetic understanding about learning through our intelligence, creativity, and well-being. So with that being said, please allow me to share my background and some of my expertise based on my experiential. The best practice of growing up in the bleeding edge of the digital frontier, as the Prof. Haidai would say. And also, kindly in this presentation, allow me to share my humble but latest research based on my findings from Generation Z, whom has grown up in the digital frontier over 15 years ago. I've been a digital interactive learner for 9 years. In 2011, I was on a team where we had 20 iPods and we ran around in the villages of Bali. The program was called Learn New Media. That's actually me in the yellow blouse over there. So we were mentoring local use of Bali and learning how to get digital in using laptops, iPod touches for new media and learning exchanges. We were doing video editing, digital art, creative design, really leading a tech movement in the youths of Bali. I've had to do all my action research online back when I was doing pod farming. I've since moved on to aquaponics and hydroponics, and currently I'm leading and teaching a hydroponic project here in Mars College in Southern California. I've had the opportunity to learn from amazing tech leaders who came through and volunteered at our program, such as Chris Sunil, who was one of the first app developers for Samsung, and Pak Tri Pala, one of Bali's leading permaculturists. I've always been keen in adapting to today's technology. Even back when I was 11 years old, I was taking apart laptops and doing repairs. A battery explodes, need a RAM upgrade, I'm your girl. I've been a part of a lot of different programs, but one that I feel is most relevant and near and dear to my heart is called the Celebrations Program. It's broken down into 5 sectors, which is new media, the creative arts, action research, motivational art, and permaculture. Hosted by Wow Bali, which has this amazing philosophy of really letting the students take the wheel, using the knowledge for what they wanted. For instance, with the project Go Green, Go Fun, we were able to promote what we were passionate about, which was environmental topics, while using new media as a resource and tool. So we were learning all the skills we needed for new media, but we were able to do it in a way that sparks passion and motivation in the students by promoting a topic that they really loved. We firmly believe that you can have creativity anywhere and everywhere. All you need is a device. If you have an iPod, an iPhone, Android, iPad, whatever it may be, you can then record what you're doing, edit it together, and share it with the world. That was the beginning of our mobility training and our active learning and action research, the backbone of the Celebrations program. I presented my various projects at international conferences such as the Forum for East Asia Latin America Cooperation, BELAC. It's an interregional multilateral forum, and I presented there at the age of 14 as the Young Global Ambassador and for my unique entrepreneur projects. I was invited to the Asian Youth Leadership Congress to speak on Asian economic security, and also spoke at the Asian Youth Expo for AMI on the topic of social entrepreneurship at the age of 15. I also hosted my very own Asian youth event for youth by youth called Asian Plus Children's Festival in 2016 that celebrated the modality of the Celebrations program and regenerative leadership. So as far as my work here in the high mountain provinces, I was fortunate to travel with Wow 59 Moments on their sustainable and regenerative tour with Wow Bali, where we went around and documented various events and conferences around the Philippines. One of such was the first international forum on innovations for indigenous people here at the Mountain Province State Polytechnic College. And you can see here we have some of our videos from Wow 59 as well as some from Bali. So without further ado, I'd like to show one of our Wow 59 moments of the high mountain to Province State Polytechnic College. To start off with the evolution of tools in communication and how we've evolved from the first Gutenberg press producing books to personal computers and laptops to my generation where we have tablets and mobile smart devices. As the smart devices are getting more powerful through the year, enabling us to do normally very complicated things such as video and sound production. From the myriads of new media applications to social media applications and entertainment apps to bite-sized tools to achieve the same functions as a full desktop or laptop at the setup. Yet they're inexpensive and free to try small apps. What I'm seeing is the evolution of new ways to communicate, easier ways to get richer and multimedia information and content production that inspires creativity and sharing content, learning without very little instructional skills on mobile devices. The instructional skills on these smart devices for learning can be broken down to the following of interdisciplinary understanding. For instance, we have our interdisciplinary approach right over here to my right, and you can see UI, which is our user interface. It's the look and feel, it's the styles, graphics, and colors. It communicates the feeling of the brand. Then you have UX, which is user experience, and develops the experience of using tools, such as Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok are all communicated through the navigational experience. Then you have ID, instructional design, or the process transfer. So it's how much information is transferred through the video with easy, clear steps. For instance, one objective could be like, one video has one objective to teach or share or show. And instructional design is the creation of learning experiences and materials in a manner that results in the acquisition and application of knowledge and skills. The discipline follows the system of assessing needs, designing a process, and developing materials and evaluating their effectiveness. Then you have VE, which is the virtual environment. Connect to a collaborative network. Creating an environment that collaborations and learning can happen more effectively in the virtual and blended world, this is important in the social dynamics of learning. For example, don't you miss the classroom and your friends? So for VE, we need to design a virtual environment to give you that same feeling. For example, Zoom is an interface and experience to our collaborative network of teachers. How you design the program is based on your content, but do we really know the virtual environment of everyone who's here? How many teachers are here today? Are we feeling who they are? Do you sense 296 people here? Is it the same as if there was 296 people in a conference room? So VE needs to create that same feeling as if we were all here at a conference hall. So if you don't mind, let me do a quick survey. If you'd like to create a connection through your virtual experience, or is that not important to you? Make sure to type in, yes, I want it, or no, I don't need it. It's important that you type it in this manner as we're collecting responses. So remember, that's either yes, I want it, or no, I don't need it. In today's fast-paced world and the advent of technology evolution, mobility gives us freedom and more abilities to do what we want. Mobility is accessible, ubiquitous, and scalable. So, accessible means I can learn anywhere. I can get information anytime and learn anywhere, and it promotes freedom. Ubiquitous means I can learn from any device, and my information can integrate into blended real-life learning. Scalable is the evolution of content and regeneration of knowledge. It can be shared with everyone, and anyone can access the information that they need and add to it. Scalable learning can be evolution of content and the regeneration of knowledge and learning. This promotes lifelong learning, not only in the classroom in the first 20 plus years of our life, but the continual process in long life learning. Long life learning promotes the desire to acquire skills that are transferable to promote longer life values to my knowledge, especially important to preparing us for jobs that are not yet invented. New media and technology are such skills, and also emotional intelligence, such as in the creative arts and abilities to grow food are some of samples of these skills. Now, before we get into the next section of this presentation, let me show you another video clip from Wow 59 Moments and my work with them in Bali. The first point to mobility is multisensory connections. So what is that? That's gathering info. Naturally gathering information subconsciously and consciously. Like when you're subconsciously in awe of your teachers, you learn more. Like when you're in love, everything that person that you're in love with does is amazing. And so then we have analyzing experience. Having a wider scope of information. You're not just analyzing it in your mind, but your heart, and you're connecting at an emotional intelligence. And making a plan. Your plan will connect at a social emotional connection, a deeper understanding of the situation in order to prepare more accurately. Implementing changes. It allows you to take more actions because it gives us diverse connections for solutions. And reflecting on efforts brings meaningful review for better values in understanding and longer retainment of the knowledge. So technically, if you connect at the multisensory connections, you are more of a dynamic being. So what does that mean? So creative responses make it entertaining and fun, easy to absorb information, like when someone says something witty in conversation. You're more likely to remember the conversation. Natural connections gives us more of a holistic approach in connection. When you're holistically centered, it offers trust, nurtures courage, and it inspires connections because it's natural. Emergence of the senses expands your consciousness, which promotes deeper understanding of one another. What is that? That's allowing us to have more empathy and compassion, which are an overflowing of love for a deeper experience in learning. For example, instead of judging the content of information, you should be embracing the knowledge. This is why the love for our teachers and what we are learning gives us a deeper connection to our learning experience. What if I told you were born with this multisensory connection, and that children at an early age only connect at this level? That's why NASA's study says we're creative geniuses at the age of 5. So real learning exchanges should be in the promotion of multisensory connections. So why is this important? Students Students are more likely to retain information and be more motivated if they're intrigued by the information that they're learning. The more emotional investment they have in you, the more they're more likely to attract informational resources. At the end of the day, it will allow you to connect with more people and build collaborative networks that will benefit you. This provides more options for resources as a teacher. Don't you agree? But let's do a quick survey here. By having more options for resource via multisensory connections, will it help you in your teaching profession? So type in the chat, yes, it will help, or no, it won't, or I'm not sure. Again, just a reminder to type in the exact response. Yes, it'll help, no, it won't, or I am not sure. Auditory processing. Auditory cues play a crucial role in everyday life. It's a complex phenomenon affected by physiology, expectation, and of course the visual interface. Multi-channel audio connections can actually produce virtual sound to replicate real experiences, such as a 3D space. So with auditory cues, they increase awareness of surrounding, cue visual attention, and convey a variety of complex information without taxing the visual system. The entertainment industry has long recognized the importance of sound to create ambience and emotion, aspects that are often lacking in the instructional design which develops VEs. Placing someone in a virtual world with an improperly designed auditory interface is equivalent to creating a virtual impairment for the user, making them less aware of their surroundings, contributing to feelings of isolation. This is why general techniques for producing auditory stimuli, both with and without spatial cues, are so important. So here we have eye tracking studies. Interactive eye tracking applications are designed to respond to or interact with the user on the basis of observed eye movements and constitute a promising means of communication for people. Navigation focus is a promising means of communication. Stylized color, texture, and shapes have great influence in psychology and connections, and human gestures are natural and flexible and may often be efficient and powerful in communication. To support gesture recognition, human position and movement must be tracked and interpreted in order to recognize semantically meaningful gestures. A primary goal of virtual environments is to provide natural, efficient, powerful, and flexible interactions for users while navigating, exploring, and communicating. Providing gestural capabilities as an input modality, particularly in the context of multimodal interaction, can help meet these requirements. Gesture may also be used as a communication back channel to communicate agreement, participation, attention, and conversation, such as turn-taking, and so on and so forth. That could be as simple as visual or verbal behavior such as nodding and saying "uh-huh" to indicate that you agree, and so on and so forth. Human gestures are natural and flexible and may often be efficient and powerful, especially as compared to alternative interaction modes. The potential for these techniques to support natural and powerful interfaces for communication in VEs is really compelling, and advances in the past decades are bringing this closer to a commonplace reality. More recently, gesture recognition has become a popular consumer technology for use in gaming, driven largely by the introduction of the Microsoft Kinect in 2010, and in smart televisions with recent commercial offerings by Samsung and others. Sensors providing depth images, or RGB plus depth, at frame rates have made these systems possible. I mean, really, if our kids are growing and playing with it, we need to consider it. Given that the human body can express a huge variety of gestures, there are of interest for human-computer interaction, HCI, and what is appropriate to sense and recognize is a huge consideration. As we now move on to olfactory senses. The sense of smell provides a continuous stream of critical information about our environment that influences decisions we make every day. Smells cue us to potentially dangerous situations, attract us to things we enjoy, and even help us identify people from an early age. Because of our evolutionary dependence on scents, we're able to differentiate between thousands of smells. Although these natural uses of smells in the live environment suggest potential applications of scent in virtual environments, the most powerful applications of scent may lie in eliciting targeted emotional states or modifying other user states to prepare them for educational or entertainment purposes. The potential benefit of integrating scents into VE have led designers to develop a battery of more realistic simulated scents. Although very little guidance is available to support the integration to ensure the targeted states of VE users are elicited. However, one way is to trigger via visual and auditorial stimuli, such as images of flowers, drinking coffee on camera, or the sizzling sound of meat on the grill. Memory is core supporting construct to all learning models, and the process of perceiving and processing odors is well situated to affect it. Olfactory signals pass through the neocortex, and this area of the brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex and the lateral inferior cortex, controls memory. Thus, olfactory and memory are closely linked and invariably influence one another. And last but not least, we're at our haptic and somatosensory experiences, which is our touch, vibration, temperature, pressure, and chemical senses. Haptic video refers to adding a sense of touch to video by pre-authoring shape and texture of certain objects, which offers viewers the possibility of passive immersive experiences in entertainment and education applications. With haptic video, viewers will be able to touch these video objects to experience their 3D shape, texture, and motion. The potential of adding haptic force feedback into 2D broadcast video has been discussed by O'Madrain and Oakley. They have defined the term presentation interaction that involves changing the location of the main character in a cartoon movie through the use of a 2 degree of freedom, DOF, haptic force feedback interface without altering the structure of the narrative. When the user moves the haptic cursor, the character's rendered location in the scene is changed, and the force vector derived from the character's displacement from the center of the screen is displayed to the user through the device. And although somatosensory and somathesia are not really there with current technology, with the chemical senses such as smell and taste, these multisensory are very powerful to the human's emotional intelligence. And just like a good book and story that depicts emotional connections to smell and taste that triggers memories and transcends time and space, we need to be conscious of this dynamics within our own instructional design. We are now in the VE space framework. Here I would like to go deeper in my research and topics in the areas of VE space that are still researches in progress in the areas of instructional design via virtual environments, yet I feel might be very useful to instructional designers and or the evolutionary instructional design that will mitigate to VE studies and VR developments for learning in the very near future. Areas such as behavior studies, ergonomics of ID, interactive understandings, team training, and beyond presence. If anything, research might give you a broader scope of what is possible to come and or help you develop the meta skills and or research motivation for these transferable understandings. Some of the studies can be viewed as meta design framework because they deal with human psychology and physiology connections to being human. Studies of behavior environments of the ergonomics, the interaction between human and his or her working environment, and especially interactive understandings of environment in mediums such as video. Of course, there are things in the VE space such as augmented cognition studies, which are new and fascinating, and which I hope to inspire your imagination and influence new research of a new future ahead of us. Most important of all, to development conservation of cultural dynamism is promotion in social connections via modern methodologies and technologies. I feel that this is very important to know our ancient cultures so that we can develop a better future ahead. Here we have behavioral studies. Behavioral studies has the following findings and characteristics. Situation motivation is characterized by both intrinsic and extrinsic motives for engaging in any particular behavior. Engagement is defined as a positive, fulfilling state of mind that is characterized by vigor, dedication, and absorption. Attention. Models of attention or incorporating arousal suggest that low and high arousal stimuli exert opposite effects. Memory is a core supporting construct to all learning models, and processing of perceiving and processing odors is well situated to affect it. As previously discussed, olfactory signals pass through the neocortex, and this area of the brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex and the lateral intracortical cortex, controls memory. Thus, olfaction and memory are closely linked and variably influenced by each other. Workload has the potential to affect all stages of the learning process. Workload can be categorized into two levels, global workload and subcomponents of workload, which are typically mental workload, physical workload, temporal workload, effort, frustration, and performance, which is a person's appraisal of their own performance on a task. It is intuitive that scent could affect workload. However, there is a plethora of research in this area detailing how and when this occurs. Emotion. Numerous studies have found that olfactory cues can effectively elicit emotion and have proven successful in shifting a person's preference, influencing motivation in children and adults. Given the extraordinary power emotion wields over almost every aspect of cognition, the relationship is, nevertheless, not entirely one-sided. Rather, reciprocal influences between emotion and cognition. As we're now moving on to ergonomics of ID. So that's applications of ergonomics in the ecosystem instructional design, neuroergonomics, and human factors. Ergonomics is a study of human factors, that is, the interaction between human and his or her working environment. The classic starting point for the application of ergonomics in systems design follows the agreement of aims, objectives, constraints, and stakeholders is the task or function analysis and user analysis. Or should we say ecosystem design, which I will share with you later. Neuroergonomics is the field of psychophysiology, focusing on the relationship between psychological functioning and physiological responses. Psychophysiological measurement techniques have been used and interpreted as physiological and correlates of underlying processes and constructs for decades. Moreover, these techniques are becoming more prevalent in studying interactions between human and technology. This has led to the discipline of engineering psychophysiology, the interest group psychophysiology in ergonomics, and neuroergonomics. Neuroergonomics has been referred to as the study of the brain and behavior at work. Although similar to psychophysiological-based studies, neuroergonomics is primarily concerned with those aspects associated with brain activity and not psychophysical measurements specifically. Human factor. This issue, known also as human factors and ergonomics, is an old, well-stated problem that has still no satisfactory evaluation methodology, yet means of assessing VE usability are under development. On that note, I will phrase my father's favorite line from the last Tron movie. She's the miracle man, everything I ever worked for, a digital frontier to reshape the human condition. Interactive understandings is the next topic of discussion for the research I've been doing, and it's revealed that emotions are anatomically intertwined with almost every other cognitive function, implicating an interactive network with distributed activity in time and space. So, though the entirety of the human emotion system is far from well understood by scientists, neurological studies reviewed collectively and support the conclusion that emotional processing is a multimodal action involving an extensive list of brain structures. all scattered about different regions of the brain, and all have been identified in an even wider range of cognitive functions. Neuroimaging data of these brain structures by visually depicting the overlapping roles that emotions and cognitive play in cerebral processes. So, by there, we then reveal that our emotions are anatomically intertwined with almost every other cognitive function, which is amazing. And so, the results best support arousal theory. Participants who played the game who were more aroused as measured by pulse rate than those who observed another play the game or those who simulated game movements. Social cognitive theory, however, received mixed support. Specifically, game players reported more aggressive thoughts than those who observed another person play the game or who simulated game movements. However, contrary to prediction, the observers reported no more aggressive thoughts than the game simulators. The psychoanalytical view that catharsis would release aggressive impulses safely via fantasy was not supported because players were more aroused and had more aggressive thoughts, not less. The results suggested that interactive VE experiences led to stronger effects than simply observing another person perform an antisocial act. Immersive and interactive are frequently used adjectives in applications such as virtual reality, computer games, and human-computer interaction. However, their use with real media, both 2D and 3D, entertainment, broadcast, and communication services is new and in its infancy. Since stimuli represented by modalities beyond 3D video and spatial audio, such as touch, heat, and smell, needs also be captured, authored, transmitted, rendered, and displayed at the receiving side to even create a fully immersive passive haptic media experience. There is also an ongoing debate about the manifestation of presence. Some researchers emphasize the role of hardware and software created stimuli, that is, factors erogenous to human participants, while others highlight the influence of participants' unique characteristics and experiences and how these shape their subjective interpretation of a medium, that is, factors erogenous to human participants. Some theorists emphasize the role of task and performance, suggesting that presence is tantamount to successfully supported action in the environment. Still, others accentuate social factors, focusing on the interactions participants have with each other, virtual entities, and mediated environments. In fact, in an extensive review of the literature of the time, Lombard and Ditton identified 6 distinct factions of presence definitions, that is, social richness, realism, transportation, immersion, social interaction, and interaction with the medium. In other words, there are many different opinions within the presence community, and after looking across the literature, it becomes clear that presence cannot be readily defined as a simple, uniformed phenomenon. As we move on to the augmented cognition portion of my research, augmented cognition seeks to revolutionize human-computer interactions by creating a closed loop between the user and the system, one of which real-time cognitive state of a user is captured via neuroscientific tools and used to modify or adapt the system to optimize human performance. Here we can see human state can be captured and analyzed in real time and used to assess the effectiveness of a VE system design. VE is a display medium that can be used to interact, engage, and inform a user within a closed-loop fashion are proposed to be an alternative reality that can stimulate our senses to generate desired cognitive, affective, and physical responses. Augmented cognition comprises a set of theories, principles, and computational systems to support and extend human cognitive abilities in real time by taking explicit consideration of well-characterized limitations in people's attention, memory, problem-solving, and decision-making. It can be thought of as an intelligence amplification, a form of cognitive prosthesis that extends innate intelligence. Such human augmentation is seen as a transformational emerging technology, one that is expected to achieve mainstream adoption in about a decade. The need for augmentation arises from the fact that humans are limited in their information processing capacity. Progress in digital computation and storage has provided an abundance of data that overextends these human capacities. At the same time, the decade of the brain has provided the potential to measure human information processing bottlenecks in real time. This is the future of AI, integrated with humanity through good instructional design, applying multisensory connections to develop a virtual environment. We can develop a crowd augmented cognitions to represent us as a collective AI. Now, as we're talking about team training, VEs are currently being used to train teams in a myriad of domains, including businesses, healthcare, education, aviation, law enforcement, and the military. Technology-based team training represents a cost-effective and flexible means of training delivery. So I feel that these side research in which I will share are important for today's time, and we need to do more action research for sustainable and regenerative developments via the team training of collaborative networks. In a more recent survey of 185 professionals representing 185 organizations, Jazz Background et al. Found that 94% of professionals stated that their organizations employed teams to achieve organizational outcomes. Additionally, there had been an increase in the use of virtual teams, a team or group whose members are mediated by time, distance, or technology. Due to the value of teams, considerable resources have been allocated to enhancing their effectiveness through training. Much have learned over the past decades about the science of training, leading researchers to conclude that training produces clear benefits for individuals and team organizations and society. Although technology is partially responsible for a rapidly changing workplace, it is responsible for advancements in training technologies. Virtual environments are an example of such a technology that has shown considerable potential utility for team training. One of the major advantages of VE is the ability to accommodate multiple trainees and configurations from individual to team training using both real and or virtual trainings. This is significant as U.S. organizations spend in excess of $100 billion per year on employee training and development. The appeal of utilizing VEs for training is alluring. The promise of VE technology is to deliver better training to more people in a more cost-effective manner. However, as any training intervention, the science of training should be followed. In other words, organizations should not assume that VEs should be successful in and of themselves for enhancing core competencies, like knowledge, skills, and attitudes. A robust theoretical framework for supporting learning within VEs is required. A strong theory-based framework will increase chances that team training and VEs facilitate learning and positive training transfer to the job. And we're finally at the beyond presence portion of my research. One of the often cited benefits of virtual environments is that they give participants a means to experience places that they would never be able to visit and to perform tasks that they would otherwise be too dangerous or expensive. Being transported to such places and feeling the sensation of being there is called presence. A renowned artificial intelligence researcher, Marvin Minsky, first coined the term telepresence to refer to the feeling of being there at a remote location by the way of remote access technology, such as video teleconferencing or remotely operated vehicle interface. Since telepresence technically refers to the sense of being in a different real-world site, other researchers have used the term virtual presence to represent the sense of being present in a VE. Still, others partition the construct further, attempting to differentiate among concepts such as spatial presence, mediated presence, co-presence, transactional presence, environmental, social, and personal presence, simple, cybernetic, and experiential presence, or physical, subjective, and objective presence. To many, the concept of presence and the benefit of improving VE participant senses of presence seems intuitive. However, upon deeper inspection of the academic literature, one finds that the topic is not so clear-cut. For years, portions of the academic community have been debating on the definition of presence, arguing about which constructs correlate with it, and contemplating the causal effects around it. The resulting literature provides the intrepid researcher with the impression that presence is a labyrinth construct related to everything from image resolution to mood, and yet only applicable in specific hardware-based contexts. As a result, the contemporary academic conceptualization of presence has become rather fragmented, broken into numerous subconstructs that do not necessarily share similar levels of granularity of parallelism. In summary, there is no suitable agreed-upon framework with which to conceptualize presence. The presence community has defined many different subcontracts and developed an array of competing presence models. Theorists continue to debate the variety of potential correlates to presence, and while presence psychometrians attempt to capture these variables and their relationships, their efforts often lack validity, reliability, or practical utility. In sum, although attempts have been made to realign the academic field, considerable confusion and disagreement persists. In the gathering of this research, it has helped me and the Prof. Haidai come to a different process in defining the framework for presence or dynamic well-being, but rather defining what does it mean for presence, in which creates indifference of meaning. Therefore, we are developing and connecting presence at the meta-systems design framework to co-create collaborative networks that inculcate multisensory connections while triangulating a meta-understanding framework within virtual environments. We are aligning individual, community, and collaborative ones within a dynamic regenerative cycle, such as in nature, via an ecosystem design thinking process, shared connections, inspiration, and co-creation. As we often encourage in many of our Asian youth leaders at conferences, retreats, and events throughout the years. As you expand your multisensory understandings and connect at a meta-system design of our senses to the transferable regenerations within the VE space, you will see more clearly of the framework in learning management ecosystems. This is an important study and research to the future understanding of what comprises a learning management system, especially if you're interested in a sustainable and regenerative future ahead of us, as Gen Z youths are dealing with such pressure to collectively thrive in the years to come. The ability to create, manage, distribute, retrieve, and archive are not just processes for your digital assets, but with your interconnected learning management ecosystem design thinking, rather than just a management system. We need to have radical inclusiveness in our sharing. What this means is the ability to connect at an interdependency yet optimum experience and mobility, as I have shared in my presentation. What we're currently investigating with are some of the latest secure crypto technology for the management, and our sharing and transactions empower the sovereignty of the people, our land, and the pursuit of liberty. But before we go interactive with our learning management ecosystem, so we can engage the closing session as an interactive exchange so that we can really connect before my session is over. This will make it easier for us to collaborate in the near future if we can truly have a mind and heart connection presence, even if it's virtual. Of course, hopefully now we know how to multi-connect within the VE spaces and ecosystem framework to share with one another.